Good evening. It's just about 6 p.m. here in the nation's capital. My name's Garland Nixon. The name of the show is News Views. Getting everything all adjusted here just right. I'm live on WPFW. And guess what else? Streaming live on Facebook on the Real Progressives page. Just go to Facebook. The name of the page is Real Progressives, the Facebook group. Live on Real Progressives, so that's always good too. You can check that out, streaming video. All right. What's up tonight? Well, you know we're in Fund Drive, so I'm going to have to talk about that. But there's big doings going on, and as always, the mainstream media is in radio silence on Syria, right? Syria, the issue that could, cost us all our lives. We could all end up fried just as crispy as a piece of Popeye's chicken. But the only thing you're going to hear about on the mainstream media is the latest, perverted sexual advances by Donald Trump. While, albeit that's news, maybe the first 27 straight hours that they played the audio over and over. Okay, yeah, that may have been news for a few minutes. But I'm thinking that a thermonuclear war, or the threat thereof, is probably something that probably should get a few minutes every now and then on the mainstream news, but it will not. Not happening, not ever. They're busy trying to do their thing right now. And that's why WPFW is on the air. And that's why I'm here, because I got to talk about Syria. I've got to talk about the no-fly zone. So since there's radio silence, most people don't know a lot about the no-fly zone. Got a lot to talk about the no-fly zone. As I said, we are in Fund Drive here in WPFW. There's a reason I can talk about the no-fly zone. The reason is because we don't take corporate money. You're going to help us out. Our listeners, both online and on air, help keep WPFW on air. It's the 50,000 watt station in Washington, D.C. Real deal here. Real deal here. I mean, a footprint, like 8 million people in the immediate footprint. It's incredible. And tonight it could be all over for me, because when I talk about the no-fly zone in Syria, needless to say, there's probably people holed up somewhere in a Brooklyn office who aren't going to take too kindly to that, but we're going to talk about it. And then, of course, I'm going to pitch a little bit, because hopefully you'll keep us on the air. Hello to all my friends on Facebook Real Progressives page. Let's start here. Why don't we start with the term no-fly zone? Let's just start with that. No-fly zone. Sounds friendly, doesn't it? See, that's one of those euphemisms. It's a great thing to do. George Carlin had a really funny bit on euphemisms. Go on whenever you get a chance. Certainly not now, but at some point after the show, go on YouTube and look up George Carlin's jokes or his bit on euphemisms. It's pretty hilarious, really. But it's just a euphemism. Doesn't really mean anything, does it? Kind of like, I've always thought of it like this, no-fly zone. Well, we're talking death from above, bombs, 500-pound bombs dropping on people, potential war. But no-fly zone just sounds like something that's not happening. When you think of a no-fly zone, you think, well, there's planes flying around and they're bombing people. In a no-fly zone, they wouldn't be bombing. It sounds so good, wonderful. The neoliberals are great at making really horrible things sound wonderful. It's like, to me, a no-fly zone, that term is like a happy meal. Right? McDonald's, it's a happy meal. Don't you want your child to be happy? Don't you want them to have a meal? Therefore, you must get them a happy meal. They'll smile. They'll get a toy. Now, it rots their guts out. It's nothing but fat and fried crap and cholesterol and salt and sugar. But, hey, think about it this. Until it rots their guts out, they'll be happy. Well, that's kind of like a no-fly zone. Until it rots the country's guts out, we'll all say, man, that's pretty good. All right. So a no-fly zone is what? Let's simplify this. It is the occupation of a country's airspace. That's all it really is. Let's not call it a no-fly zone. Let's call it what it is. Occupation. It is what Secretary Clinton is supporting, is saying that we should do, right, is we should go to Syria and we should occupy their airspace. It's an occupation. You can have an occupation of someone's land, right? You can have an occupation of their, the sea around them and kind of lay siege to somebody, or, occupy their harbors. Or you can occupy, now that we have aircraft, I think about it. You've got vessels that can't move, that would be like an embargo or a blockade. You've got vehicles that can't move, where you would or people, so you kind of occupy their ground. And if you're saying that planes can't move, you're occupying their airspace. It's an occupation, but no-fly zone sounds so much friendlier, doesn't it? It sounds so much more benign, but it ain't. And so let's talk about it. What are we talking about here? So here's what the mainstream media is really leaving out. And here lies Garland Nixon's concern. There's a country you may have heard of that has thousands of nukes pointed at us, thousands of nuclear weapons pointed at all of our major cities, called Russia, right? So we hear everything about a new no-fly zone, but let's bring Russia into it. Let's get into the reality. Let's talk about what you would hear if the mainstream news actually talked about this, right? First of all, Russia is in Syria, right? Well, okay, so Russia, they're a close ally of Syria, and they came in at the invitation of the Syrian government. And see, that's something we got to say. The Syrian government, Bashar al-Assad being the leader of the government, whether you like it or not, that's their government. That is the recognized sovereign government of Syria. May not like it. I'm not saying they're good guys, but under international law, that is the sovereign government, okay? So the sovereign government of Syria invited the Russians to come in to fight to help them fight against people who they were at war with in 2015. Thanks to, like us, I might add, that the wars even started, but that's a whole nother show. Okay. But people act like, well, the Russia just kind of meandered in there, wandered in there. Gee, what are the Russians doing there? Here's what what the mainstream media never tells us. Russia already has an air base and a naval base in Syria. Russia has been maintaining an air base and a naval base in Syria for years. Russia didn't now they brought in more troops, they brought in more aircraft. But I would guarantee you that most people that listen to this show do not know. Most Americans, if you ask them, do the Russians have what are the Russians doing in Syria? How long have they been there? They'd say, a couple months, I guess. They maintain an air base and a naval base in Syria. This is an ally. Think about it. We maintain air bases and major air bases and forts in military installations in South Korea, in Germany, in Japan, right? So let's just say the Russians decided, we think we're going to do a no-fly zone in South Korea. We'd say, well, wait a minute. We've been invited there at the behest of the South Korean government, or to make it really more realistic, the Chinese, because the Chinese are kind of allies with the North Koreans, and we're kind of allies with the South Koreans. What if the Chinese said we decided to do a no-fly zone in South Korea? Would we say, well, not a problem. Sure. Don't mind if you do. Let us know if we can help you with anything. No, I don't think we'd say that. It would be considered an act of war. Why? Well, how do you get to a no-fly zone? So you may remember Robert Gates. He was under George W. Bush. He was the Secretary of Defense under George W. Bush. President Obama came to power, and he kept Robert Gates there for a while. So Robert Gates is kind of hawkish. He's not a super neocon hawk, but he's far too hawkish for my taste and likely yours, right? Who opposed a no-fly zone. So when he was talking about Libya, he would say, he said, let's just call a spade, Gates explained. And I'm quoting Robert Gates. A no-fly zone begins with an attack on Libya to destroy the air defenses. That's the way you do a no-fly zone, right? A no-fly zone starts by attacking the air defenses of the country. In order for you to say nobody can fly in this country, you have to be able to fly around it. So you got to knock out the air defenses of the country. So Secretary Clinton has admitted that. She said, and I quote, well, I don't know if I want to get into that one. Okay, this is Hillary Clinton. To have a no-fly zone, you have to take out all of the air defense, many of which are located in popular areas. So our missiles, even if they are standoff missiles, so we're not putting our pilots at risk, you're going to kill a lot of Syrians. That's Hillary Clinton. So that's two things she says. Number one, you got to take out the air defense of the Syrians, right? And number two, she says, and I quote Hillary, this is a quote, not paraphrasing, a quote from Hillary Clinton. So our missiles, even if they are standoff missiles, so we're not putting our pilots at risk, meaning firing Tomahawk missiles, right? She says, and I quote Hillary Clinton, you're going to kill a lot of Syrians. So right off the bat, what do we establish very clearly? We establish that in order to have a no-fly zone in Syria, you have to attack the Syrian positions. Now, the Syrian air defenses. Now, here's what you ought to know about the Syrian air defenses. They're manned by the Syrians and the Russians. You see, having had that threat materialize, the Russians decided we ain't buying that because we're here. We got army, we got a air force here, we got a naval base here. That ain't happening. So the Russians, they brought in their S-300 and S-400. We get into technical, their air defense missile systems. And here's what the Russians said. And see, this is what you don't hear on the mainstream media because it would flip people out. Let me quote the Russians' response. If U.S. warplanes attacked either Russian installations or Syrian troops, they would be shot down immediately. The Russians have made it clear that if the United States attacks Russians or Syrians, that they will shoot back, that they will respond with force. You know what? Is the mainstream media saying anything about that? Not touching it. We have a president who is advocating to start World War III, basically. And you'd never know it if you turned on MSNBC, CNN, or Fox News. None of the three. You may know, but sadly, the only place you may hear it is Fox News. Sadly, the only place you may hear anything negative about Secretary Clinton, albeit maybe not for the right motives, but sadly that's the only thing you may hear something about this. Our country is being led like lemmings over the cliff to World War III. And now let me add this. What did MSNBC and CNN and the New York Times and Washington Post, what did they do when it came to the Iraq War? Cheerleaders. Yeah, go forward. Wonderful. They fired anybody who opposed it. So what do you expect them to do now? Except we're talking about the Russians. We're talking about the Russians. So let me go on. The no-fly zone. I'm saying you're looking at starting World War III. You're looking at starting a war with the Russians. Does anyone agree with me? Let's talk about General Joseph Dunford. Who might General Joseph Dunford be? Maybe you heard that name, maybe you haven't. Okay, you've probably heard of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right? These are the head military men of the nation. These are the people, the generals and all this stuff, the admirals, whatever the case, these are the people, the military leaders, the head military minds, the guys in charge of it all, right? When it comes to the military. So they're supposed to know something about what they're doing. God forbid that they have in the past, but they may now. So General Joseph Dunford, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs Staff, has warned that imposing a no-fly zone could potentially kick off a war with Russia. This is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what I'm saying. Now, you're not going to hear that because they ain't going to put them on CNN or MSNBC to say that. But that's what we're up against here. That is what we're looking at. We're looking at discussions. We're looking at these irresponsible neocons advocating for actions that could lead to the death of us all. That's realistically. That sounds like hyperbole, doesn't it? Sounds like hyperbole. It sounds like, come on, Garland, the death of us all. Let's not be so hyperbolic. I mean, come on, you're overdoing it. Well, that's what thermonuclear war will do, wouldn't it? And here's the scary part. Think about this. So at this point, our military, though not actually really and most people don't know this, though we're not really technically superior to Russia. We are people. Everybody thinks we're technically superior. They don't understand that we are not technically superior than Russia. Over to Russia, but we've got more stuff. Why? Because we spend so much. So let's just say we get in a war with Russia and we're winning. Do you think Vladimir Putin's going to go down? What you see, the thing about it is this: what is the person that will fight the most? If a little guy is getting beat up by a big guy, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to bite him. He's going to scratch him. He's going to fight him. He ain't going down because he knows you're going to kill me. Okay? What's he going to do? If he's got a gun, he's going to shoot him. If he's got a nuclear weapon, he's going to push the button. So the scariest thing would be for the U.S. to get in a war with Russia, and granted, everybody thinks we'd win everything. They'd lose a lot of people. And if it got to the point where Russia looked up and they said, we're going to lose, Putin had pushed the button. And that's it for us all. No more cheerleading. No more MSNBC. Oh, boy, hooray. Ha ha. Boy, we showed that Putin. No, you wouldn't show that Putin at all. That would be it for us, and maybe the cockroaches or the bacteria that survived could evolve into something more intelligent than we are. Or maybe the wisest thing is that if whatever comes back after nuclear winter, maybe the best thing is that it doesn't evolve into something as intelligent as we are, because a large brain seems to be the closest way to total destruction for a species. If you think about it, alligators and sharks have been around for millions of years. They haven't changed. You know why? They're not real smart. Do they mess up the environment? No, they just eat things. You get in front of them, you're smaller than they are, they're going to eat you. And you know what happens? They don't really have to change. They just kind of hang around because they're not like pumping carbon monoxide, dioxide, anything else into the atmosphere. No, no global changing from a shark. No climate change from a shark. No climate change from an alligator. They're just going to pretty much eat you, and that goes on about that way. So maybe we'd be far better off if after we wipe everything out, the creatures that evolve would come back, and they're just like not some pieces of slime or something on the inside of a cave. And that way, everything will be nice and clean, and you won't have to worry about it, and the earth will continue to replenish itself, and there'll be no idiots to push the button. So, nature has a way of looking out for itself. The earth is smart, is a smart organism, and maybe it needs to clean itself of a virus called humans, but let's just hope that doesn't happen anytime soon. If that's going to happen, can't we wait a couple of hundred years? Can't we wait to at least die of climate change, for goodness sake, if we're going to get wiped out? That's what I'm hoping. At least climate change will wipe us out. It gives us a little bit of time to hang out. But why push the button? So that's what I'm talking about. We got more to talk about. We've got more to talk about. I got more to talk about Syria. And guess what? I may even take some phone calls, and you may get the opportunity to call in. I've got people saying, what's Aleppo? She's a warmonger. Yeah, well, that you could argue that, make that argument. At any rate, let me take a couple minutes, 3 or 4 minutes, to advocate for WPFW, tell you a little bit about WPFW, and hopefully, maybe even someone will contribute to WPFW. So let me tell you a little bit about it, for those of you who don't know. So WPFW is right here in the nation's capital. 50,000 watts of power pumping out the airways. Baltimore, Washington, Maryland, D.C., Southeast Pennsylvania, all the way out to Martinsburg, all over the place, right? WPFW is getting great sounds. Here's the thing about PFW. We get no money. None. We get no money. We're not getting, I listen to a local station that is that won't be mentioned. I won't mention the station, but I like sports. So there's a local sports station that I listen to all the time. What's advertising there now? Coke Industries. I'm always hearing on this, but if you're in D.C., you know what I'm talking about. And you listen to the big AM sports station here, right? Coke Industries. All the time. I can't even listen to a football game for a team whose name I can't mention without Coke Industries. Why? Because that's who runs everything now. You can't do sports. You can't walk down the street without Coke Industries and McDonald's, Walmart, one of them, because they own it all. You turn on the TV, they own it all. You turn on CNN, they own. This is not news, my friend. CNN, MSNBC, that ain't news. Fox, that ain't news. That's not news. Those are corporations. That's all they are. They have their champion, and they're getting her installed. That's their plan. It isn't news. WPFW here is news. And we need your help so we can keep being news, right? Let me give you the number. 202-588-9739. That's 202-588-9739. 9739. If you can call that number with your your card ready, and whatever. If it's if you can afford a couple $100, do it. If you can afford $20, do it. But at least do something. I know if you're listening to this, you're probably not much on the mainstream news, and you ain't hearing anything about Syria anywhere. Help us going. Last week it was WikiLeaks. This week is Syria. This is the only place you can get that stuff. You can't get it elsewhere. 202-588-9739. And I have a special for those of us who may be so inclined, and we get like 6 of these last week, right? People love this. I can't tell you how many of these. We've got this Martin Luther King Jr. special collection MP3 disc. If you listen to this show for quite a while, you know how fast these things go. Why? There's a reason. People tell other people about them. What is it? Here's what it is. It's 8 hours and 40 minutes of Martin Luther King. 8 hours, think about this, 8 hours and 40 minutes of Martin Luther King. And why is that important? Tell you why that's important. Because Martin Luther King's legacy was whitewashed by the mainstream media. They turned him into some kind of a saint, where he just wants around and says, let my people go, and I have a dream, and that's it. And it's like, oh, well, and the neoliberals, the media, the people in charge, the elites are comfortable with some guy going around saying, let my people go, playing the Moses role. What they're not comfortable with is the fact that Martin Luther King was a real revolutionary, that Martin Luther King was very pro-labor, that he always fought for labor, that Martin Luther King fought for a lot of things that if you remember, they called him a communist, they were all over him. So Martin Luther King fought for the left, and he was a really strong lefty, and he was a revolutionary. Let me listen to some of these speeches. Domestic urgencies versus military cost. How important is that in today's world? That's one of his speeches. 53-minute speech. Martin Luther King. Domestic urgencies versus military cost. That's just one of 11 speeches, right? 8 hours and 40 minutes of Martin Luther King, and you get to find out who the real Martin Luther King, not the whitewashed version that the media gives you. It's a special disc. Let me give you the number. So what we're asking is $100, a measly $100, and you can hear all the things about Martin Luther King, and you can hear all of his speeches, and you can have them, and you can podcast them, you can save them, you can listen to them when you're hanging around, whatever, and it will be absolutely incredible. 8 hours and 40 minutes of Martin Luther King speeches. $100 is what we're asking. That's what we're asking. The number is 202-588-9739. That's 202-588-9739. 202-588-9739 WPFW. Now, what you can also do, if you're out there and you don't want to call, you can go to wpfwfm.org. There's a little donate button. You can click donate. It'll tell you can see what show it is. That's wpfwfm.org. You can click the donate button. You can donate right there. How's that sound? But help keep WPFW on the air. We love you. I know you love the station. A lot of people love the show. I get tremendous response. So 202-588-9739. Where else are you going to hear a measly mumbling word about Syria and the potential for thermonuclear war that this country is facing right now? Think about that. Facing the potential for nuclear war. We truly, absolutely are. The Russians, so when the Russians have said, you fire on us, here's what the Russians said. If U.S. warplanes attack either Russian installations or Syrian troops, they would be shot down immediately. So do we think that if we fire standoff missiles such as Tomahawks, that they're not going to do anything, that they're not going to maybe fire on the ships that are firing them? Let's not forget, we've got the Tomahawk, they've got the Caliber missile. The Russians have long range surface to surface missiles like we do. They've got highly advanced missile systems in the same way that we do. They can do what we can do, and they can do it very well. They've got some of the most highly advanced anti-ship missiles in the world. So we're not talking about dealing with, this is not Iraq with 1950s technology we're talking about. And they have made it clear. So what we're dealing with here, and so let me lay this on the line a little bit, and how we got here, why we're here. And if you've been listening to my show, you know I've been running this all along. I've been saying this from the very beginning. The Clintons are Cold War Democrats. They're Cold War Democrats. What we looked at with Hillary versus Bernie were the Cold War Democrats versus what? The New Deal Democrats. Bernie's a New Deal Democrat. Hillary's a Cold War Democrat. The Cold War Democrats spent all their time trying to show the country that they could out anti-commie the Republicans. That's what they did. If you want to understand that, look up, here's a name to Google, Scoop Jackson. Google the name Scoop Jackson. You'll find out that the Bush War Cabinet neocons were Democrats trained under Scoop Jackson. Hillary is carrying out the legacy of a Scoop Jackson. What happened? When Hillary started running, it immediately became Russia, 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 Putin, Putin, Putin. Have you heard anything about Russia or Putin before Hillary started running? You noticed that? Not a word until the last year. Now everything's Russia and Putin all the time. Absolutely. Why? Because they're Cold War Democrats. If you're a Cold War Democrat, I mean, it's the Russians that you hate. It's the Soviet Union. Those are the enemy. And I mean, ISIS is over there. Does Hillary ever say anything about ISIS? Does she say, we've got to stop ISIS? No, she says it's Putin. All the time. Not a mumbling mention word from Hillary about ISIS. Al-Qaeda, never. Word never comes out of her mouth. The only thing that ever comes out of her mouth is Russia and Putin. Why? Because she's a Cold War Democrat, and the Cold War Democrats hated the Russians. And she's an older person who's cut her teeth, her political teeth, with a bunch of Cold War Democrats, and that's who they were. So now it's all Putin all the time. And the Russians aren't stupid. You think Putin's stupid? Do you think he doesn't read between the lines? Now, let me fill you in a little bit more. So how did these Cold War Democrats do it? How did they do it, right? Think about what they did. There was always a proxy war, right? In Korea, when the evil Red Chinese, what did they do? They fought with the South Koreans versus the North Koreans. It was the U.S. and the South Koreans versus the Chinese and the North Koreans. It was a proxy war. We blew the crap out of Korea and killed millions of Koreans as a proxy war so we could fight China without being on our ground, right? What about Vietnam? Proxy war. In Vietnam, what did? We blew the Vietnamese 2.5 million, killed them in a police action, right? Why? So the North Vietnamese and the Russians could fight us, the South Vietnamese and us. It was a proxy war. The U.S. doesn't want to have a war on their own ground, but they wanted a war against China, so they fought it on Korea's ground. They wanted a war against Russia, so they fought it on Vietnam's ground. So they can slaughter all the peasants while we stay home and just send the poor suckers over there to die. That's what the whole Cold War was about. The Cold War was always some poor innocent, peasants getting blown to smithereens by U.S., Russian, and Chinese bombs. Now do you understand Korea? Now do you understand why the Cold Warriors look at Korea and say, well, wait a minute, our newest proxy war, we can go to Syria. Excuse me, I said Korea. Why they see Syria like this. That's their newest proxy war. From Korea to Vietnam, now it's Syria. Now, Afghanistan, proxy war. The Russians were in Afghanistan, and what did we do when we were in Afghanistan? The Mujahideen, who we call Al-Qaeda today, right? We trained and armed Osama bin Laden and his spirit warriors, the Mujahideen, to fight the Russians. Once the Russians left, they fought us, but we trained them. Afghanistan was a proxy war so that the Afghans could get blown to smithereens while we fought the Russians. Everyone, that's what we do. Okay? Understand that. Now, the Cold Warriors are looking at Syria saying, hey, you know what? Now, if Hillary's back, if we get a Cold Warrior back in office, and of course they hate the Russians, we need new ground for a proxy war, and that's Syria. We go in there, right? We arm, whatever factions, they blast the Russians, and so we get some people to fight, and the Syrians get some people to fight, and we just do a good old-fashioned proxy war. It's like the Blues Brothers. Hey, guess what? We're getting the band back together. We're going to have a new proxy war against Russia. Where's this time? Syria's as good as any place. What are we going to do? Well, we'll blow up a lot of Syrians, but let's face it, that's what we do in a proxy war. We blow up lots of people who are innocent. They all die. They all get slaughtered. And we sit here and we say, those darn Ruskies, we'll fix them. Times are a-changing, my friend. Times are a-changing. And unfortunately for the Cold Warriors, I don't think the Russians are prepared to play the game. A, play the game the way they used to. And B, We're talking about a totally different dynamic here. We're talking about an area of the world that's already in flames, thanks to us. Okay, we're talking about now. Who are the Russians? For those who they don't even talk about this. So who are the Russians' allies? The Russians' allies are the Iranians. Russians' allies are the Syrians. Now, who does Hillary say that she hates the most? The Syrians and the Iranians. It's always the Iranians. You ever notice? So the neocons want war with the Syrians, right? So we're getting a no-fly zone in there, and of course they want war with the Iranians. And Russia's already said, look, you attack Iran, we're in it. So basically, Russia's drawing a line, and they're saying, we're not going to start a fight with you. We're not shooting at you. We ain't messing with you. However, now think about this. Is it unreasonable? Is it unreasonable what Russia's saying? Whether we like these countries or not, that isn't up to us. They're not our countries. They're not states, right? If, let's say, one of our Canada, France, whatever, one of our, if Russia was attacking them, if Russia was saying we're going to bomb them or whatever, wouldn't we say, well, this is our ally? Don't we have a NATO accord that says any of the allies, if you attack one of the allies in NATO, you attack them all? We've already got that. And let's not forget, Turkey right now is starting to side with Russia. Turkey doesn't like us, and they're starting to move in the direction of Russia. They may not be the last. But the long and short of it is, because of the dynamics in the Middle East, this is the proverbial throwing matches down the powder hold, in a ship. You're standing on the top, throwing matches down, hoping it doesn't explode. This is not a joke. This is not a game. The reality is that we don't have a media in America anymore, right? We don't have a media in America anymore. And so we are left to fend for ourselves when it comes to news and information. We're left to fend for ourselves. We got to go online. We got to search it. We got to have, the Real Progressives page. We got to have WPFW, which is listener funded. That's the only way, because MSNBC, Fox News, CNN are all owned by major corporations. And you know what? They got a dog in the fight. And you know what the dog in the fight is? Their money. Recently, Chuck Schumer said that one of his first, of all things, you have to get a phone call during the show, but recently, Chuck Schumer said that one of his first goals is massive tax cuts for the corporation, so they can bring their money back, right? So, of course, who would be shocked at that? The neoliberals first. What are you going to do when you get in? Oh, we're massive tax cuts for the corporation. Of course. You know what? Chuck Schumer didn't need to. Did Chuck Schumer really need to tell you that was his first goal? Didn't need to. That's a given. That's done. If you ask me what's Chuck Schumer's first goal and the neoliberals, I would say, well, let's see. You got tax cuts for the corporation, tax cuts for the rich people, and tax cuts for the corporations. Well, first of all, who put them in? Who put them in office? Yes, that's right. The people who own MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News put them in office, and those are the ones who are they going to give tax cuts to? Exactly. Once again, you're listening to WPFW 89.3 FM here in Washington, D.C., and I got to talk for a minute or two about PFW because we are in Fund Drive. I'm having a lot of fun, but have you noticed? You'll notice something about this show. This is something you're going to notice about this show. I'm saying things that the mainstream media, they will cut you off. Can you imagine if I went on CNN or MSNBC and said any of this? If I said the word WikiLeaks, you are cut off. Done. I've got to announce something for Real Progressives, also an event coming up. But at any rate, in a few minutes, I'll announce that. But you go on a major, on my Facebook page, I actually have an example of that. There were some people talking. Chuck Cuomo was on there, and he was talking to this guy, and this guy says, Hillary Clinton says some bad things about her. He didn't cut him off. And then he said, and WikiLeaks, soon he said WikiLeaks, they cut him off so quickly, they didn't even have something else to put on. They cut him off, and there were just lines across the screen, and it was going beep for a second. Like the old days when the TV shows went off, TV stations went off at night. That's what they had. They cut him off so fast. He just said the word WikiLeaks, and they didn't talk about it anymore. So we don't have media as we traditionally expected it. But we do have WPFW, and WPFW needs some help. We need a hand here. We need, and I'll put it a different way. We need you to be a part of alternative media, because that's what WPFW is. I mean, if you aren't taking money from the corporations, we aren't taking a dime from the corporations. We call it alternative media. Why don't we get rid of it? The word alternative. It's just media. They aren't. We are. How about that? The number is 202-588-9739. 202-588-9739. That's the number that you would call. As I said, you can become a member for what, Bill? Bill, what, this was a $35, Bill? Is that it?
The basic membership is $50.
Okay.
And for Pacifica, it's $25.
Okay, so a basic membership is $50, and a Pacifica membership is $25. But a basic membership is $50, so you can become a member of WPFW, a voting member. Think about that. You think you're going to be a voting member of CNN? If you're trying to vote, they don't even want you to vote. Period. They're going to take you off the voting rolls, so you can't even be a voting member of the United States anymore. But you can be a voting member of WPFW. 202-588-9739. Just $50 makes you a voting member. Additionally, if you don't have it, whatever you can do to keep us going would be appreciated. 202-588-9739. It costs like $100,000 a month. Literally, like $100,000 a month to keep a station of this size and magnitude on the air, broadcasting the truth. Broadcasting the truth. It costs $100,000 a month, and that ain't peanuts. 202-588-9739. 202-588-9739. And again, for those of you so inclined, you got to get the Martin Luther King Jr. Special Collection MP3 disc. You got to get that Martin Luther King Jr. Special Collection MP3 disc. That is 8 hours and 40 minutes of Martin Luther King speeches. Give you an example of some of the speeches. America's Chief Moral Dilemma. That's a speech he gave at UC Berkeley in 1967, May 7th. It's an hour and 13 minutes. How about this? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in London, December 7th, 1964. That's a 62-minute speech. And here's what's interesting about that. During his visit to the United Kingdom in 64, while on the way to Oslo to accept the 64 Nobel Peace Prize, the 1964 Nobel Peace Prize, King addressed an overflow crowd at the City Temple Hall in central London. And Pacifica European correspondent Saul Bernstein was there to record it. Dr. King discussed the history of slavery, Supreme Court rulings, Greek philosophy, the concept of nonviolence, the fight against segregation, the registration of black voters, and the struggle to end hate and bigotry across the planet. King also read a prepared text on the situation at the time in South Africa, voicing support for of a unified world nation policy that would impose sanctions on the country to force an end to apartheid. Now, this particular speech was lost for years. It just got found like a couple years ago. Nobody's heard it. This is incredible. Martin Luther King speech in London. It's an hour long. Nobody even heard it. There's just incredible. It's 8 hours and 40 minutes. Tons of speeches like that. We're asking $100, and you will get an MP3 disc that you will never forget in your life, that you will listen to. You can break them up. You can put them in your car, whatever the case may be, and you'll just your eyes will bug out. You won't believe what you're hearing. 202-588-9739. 202-588-9739. Thank you. Okay, so we got an event coming up here. Okay, the Real Progressives. Now listen to this. There's the March to Take Back Democracy. That's Sunday, October 23rd. It's at Lincoln Memorial Circle at 10 a.m. Right? That's Sunday, October 23rd, to Lincoln Memorial Circle, 10 a.m. The March to Take Back Democracy. Real Progressives, the webpage. I'm an editor on this page. It's a great page. We got listen to this. We got 88,000 members on the Real Progressives webpage, right? Great page. So you want to be there Sunday, October 23rd, to Lincoln Memorial Circle in Washington, D.C. at 10 a.m. Fantastic. That's big things happening. So I hope you have or will soon dial 202-588-9739. Or as I said, you can go to wpfwfm.org. You can click donate, and you can make things happen here, keep us on the air, and allow us to continue to talk about horrifying things. That's right. Garland Nixon is talking about horrifying things. And let's get back to the no-fly zone. There are a couple things here. one of the things that Secretary Clinton said here, right? One of the things, and let me see, I've got some notes here, but one of the things that Secretary Clinton did was that she shifted away from she shifted positions basically on the no-fly zone, and I don't mean positions. Let me stop trying to tiptoe around things. She lied. How about that? And I'm saying she lied. Can I prove it? If you call somebody a liar, you better be able to prove it. Well, let me read Hillary Clinton's own words, and you can interpret whether or not it was a lie for yourself. So Chris Wallace the other night during the debate said, if you to her, and I quote Chris Wallace, if you impose a no-fly zone and a Russian plane violates that, does President Clinton shoot that plane down? Right? So what Hillary did was, instead of, she brushed it off, we give the Russians plenty of warnings, so you didn't answer the question, which, that's Hillary. But at any rate, so she goes on to say this. She said, she inferred that instead of a military strategy, it was a diplomatic one. So she goes on, and this is Hillary, and I'm going to quote Hillary. I think a no-fly zone could save lives and could hasten the end of the conflict. Right? Sounds good. Let me quote Hillary. So our missiles, if they are standoff missiles, so we're not putting our pilots at risk, you're going to kill a lot of Syrians. Let me quote Hillary's first quote and her second quote again, and you tell me if they're incongruous. You tell me if maybe there's a contradiction here. The other night, now, keep in mind, when Hillary said this, she was delivering a 2013-page speech to Goldman Sachs. So, during a 2013-page speech to Goldman Sachs, Hillary said, and I quote, so our missiles, even if they are standoff missiles, so we're not putting our pilots at risk, you're going to kill a lot of Syrians. You're going to kill a lot of Syrians. There is nothing ambiguous about that. I got to be honest about her quote. She didn't say you are. She said, you're going to kill a lot of Syrians. The other night, when asked by Chris Wallace, she said, I think a no-fly zone could save lives. I see a contradiction between saying, well, if we do this, it's going to kill a lot of Syrians. If we do this, it's going to save lives. You see, that's what's meant by a private position and a public position. A private position is one that you tell Goldman Sachs. A public position is what you tell the suckers so they'll vote for you. That's the bottom line. That's what she means. Think about it, a public position and private position. If you're telling the truth, you only got one position. The truth is like one position. What's your name? Garland. I'm not going to go like to my friends, what's your name? You can call me Bill Witherspoon. No, my name's Garland. That's my public position. That's my private position. What do you think of Hillary? She's terrible. I'm not going to go to Goldman Sachs. Well, I don't know. Of course, if they pay me $225,000, I might consider. No, I wouldn't. No, I'm not going to go in front of Goldman Sachs, all jokes aside, and say, well, that Hillary, she's the most wonderful candidate ever, and I think we should. No, and then come out and you guys say, what do you think of Hillary? She's terrible. No. Hillary says to Goldman Sachs, you mean a no-fly zone? Well, of course, we're going to kill Syrians. Come on. We're going to kill a lot of, not one or two. I mean, we're killing a whole lot of Syrians. We're killing massive numbers. Muchos Syrians are El Caputo. Now she gets in front of us. This is a kind of a soft and furry kind of Care Bears kind of thing we got going on here. We're going to hug people. Let's call it instead of a no-fly zone, let's call it a pro-hug zone. We're going to hug Syrians. With 500-pound bombs and, bunker buster missiles and things, but we're going to hug Syrians. The only thing you're going to hug is what's left of their bodies that are blown apart. So that's certainly a problem, wouldn't you suspect? When someone is running for president and they say, and I quote, you're going to kill a lot of Syrians if you do what I want to do. And then when they're asked in front of everybody, they say, I think a no-fly zone could save lives. Whose life will be saved by a no-fly zone? Syrians? No. The people you're bombing? No. Ours when we get in war with the Russians and they fry us? No. Whose lives are going to be saved? No one's. That, my friend, is a falsehood. That, my friend, is a lie. You know, there are a lot of people that say, well, that Hillary Clinton's a liar. And then other people say, well, you can't point to one time that she lied. I think that's a little irresponsible to call Hillary Clinton a liar. That's unacceptable. Hillary Clinton calls Hillary Clinton a liar. That's the bottom line. That's what we're up against. But, you know, here's the problem that I have. If you didn't listen to WPFW, you wouldn't know that, would you? Not unless you went, like you searched all over the internet, you might find it hidden. You know, if if NSA has like erased every trace and every track of a story that says that, which is a remote possibility. Other than that, you turn on the mainstream corporate outreach, which we will no longer refer to as news. The mainstream corporate outreach, you're not getting any of this. Nobody's going to tell you that the Russians have said, if you guys attack a Syrian or a Russian position, we're shooting planes down. Nobody's going to say that. Nobody's going to tell you that the Russians already have an Air Force base and a Navy base in Syria. How can we justify going to Syria and creating a no-fly zone when they're already there? They're at the invitation of the government, and they already got a Navy base and an Air Force base there, operating with people on the ground. You can say troops with boots on the ground. They got boots on the ground. Their boots were invited to be on the ground. You don't believe me? Go to Google and look it up yourself. I'm not making this up. But unfortunately, I might as well be making it up, because what you're hearing is unfortunately a very, very rare thing to hear on the radio. Some very, very rare information. I want to make sure I covered everything here. I've basically covered all of my notes. So here's what I want to do. Let me see. Well, let me check. I got to check and see how our numbers are looking. I'm scared. I am scared. You guys got me scared. I got to look and see what our numbers are looking like. Hold on. Oh, darn, I can't see what our numbers are looking like. Never mind. Looked on our computer screen and it's not up there. Maybe somebody will come in and tell me.
I'll find out.
Yeah, there we go. Bill Witherspoon. Now, let me tell you about Bill Witherspoon. Bill Witherspoon's the guy on the other side of the glass. He is actually the brains of the operation. Bill Witherspoon is the person that makes this thing go down. He's the person that makes this show happen. And I am just realistically, people think I'm like, okay, it's Garland Show. I am actually just Bill Witherspoon's assistant. That's like technically my title, and it is assistant to Bill Witherspoon. Bill Witherspoon makes the show happen, and I help him out as best I can. And I certainly appreciate Bill Witherspoon allowing me to run my mouth on his show. But he's going to find out how we're doing on pledges. We ain't doing so well on pledges, Bill, are we, Bill? Do we have anything yet? Not yet. Holy moly.
One may call back.
We've got one may call back. Well, I guess that means the Koch brothers will... Hey, look, I'm going to do like Hillary, right? So what would Hillary do if she wasn't getting anything? She'd say the Russians are winning. She'd say Putin is winning. Putin's going to get us off the air. Yep. No, all jokes aside, let me give the number out. 202-588-9739. 202-588-9739. That's the number for WPFW. That's the number you call to pledge. I certainly appreciate a lot of people calling in and pledge. We did really, really well last week. And hopefully this week somebody will call in on 202-588-9739. 202-588-9739. Or maybe even someone will go to wpfwfm.org and they will click the donate button, and they will be kind enough to get us going that way. Meanwhile, why don't I take a couple calls, Bill? Maybe we can motivate some people there. We got a few minutes. We can take a couple calls. 202-588-0893. 202-588-0893. We got a call. Anybody on already? Oh, already on. 202-588-0893. Who do we got?
Ted.
Holy moly, it's Ted. Ted, what's happening?
Yes, sir. Is this Garland?
Yes, it is.
Garland, hello. I'm talking about the no-fly zone. And I've called you before, conservative, Republican, but I'll tell you, I agree with a lot of what you say. Two things. It really bugs me that we're not protecting the people from some invading force. We're going to another sovereign country, and we're going to be threatening to shoot down their own planes over their country. Where are they going to shoot down? Syrian planes over Syria. I'm a little troubled by that. What right do we really have to do that? Number two, they got to spend money pretty freely. I don't know what a no-fly zone costs, but $100 million? $500 million? How much are we going to spend on this, and whose money is it?
You know, that's a very good point. One of the things that happened that I pointed out during the debates is they asked Hillary Clinton about, you know, the things that she wanted to do, and when she said every single thing that I want to do is paid for. But I actually posted on my Facebook page then, what about the no-fly zone? That's the most expensive thing you can do is war, and I bet you that's not paid for because none of the wars are ever paid for. They always say, how are we going to pay for it? Whenever there's something that could help the working people, the working poor, they say, how are we going to pay for it? But nobody ever asks, how are we going to pay for their next crazy, mad military adventure? I think we lost Ted. That's okay. Ted, you made a great point. I certainly appreciate it. 202-588-0893, 202-588-0893. We do have a couple of lines open, so you can call in. And more importantly, I might add, 202-588-9739. That's 202-588-9739. That's the one we need to help us stay on the air. So you know when you turn on WPFW, you won't hear this. You won't even be crickets in the background. We need you to help. 202-588-9739. Who we got, Bill?
Tyrone,
you're on the air, Tyrone. Fill me in. What's up?
How you doing? This is Ty.
All right.
First of all, I wanted to say to you, when you said $100,000, it's actually, Garland, $150,000.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's a lot of money, but I know we can do it. And I want you and your family to have a blessed and safe weekend, and you do an excellent job.
Thank you very much. I certainly appreciate that. Wow, boy, I was. Well, you know, I'm saying $100,000. It used to be, but I've been on the station for a long time, and things don't get any cheaper. So $150,000 a month, that's a lot of money. I mean, I think Bill Witherspoon right off the bat, I'm guaranteeing you, we paying that guy about $149,000 a month, right? That's the whole, a talent of Bill's ability. It's hard to keep this guy. So you got to help us keep Bill Witherspoon right off the bat. All right, Bill. How much did I miss that salary, Bill? I think I missed it by $149,000 a month, didn't I? All right, who we got next?
we won't discuss salary. We got Jeff.
Jeff, you are on the air.
Hello, Garland.
Yes.
My name is Jeff. I just have one question. Who are you working for? If I want to hear Putin's line, I can listen to RT.
I'm on WPFW. I'm not working for anybody. I'm a volunteer. I do this for free.
Everything you say sounds like what it was written in Moscow.
No, well, it may. Look, here's the bottom line, Jeff. I say what I believe. Who agrees with me? I don't care. And let me tell you something. Even if Putin did agree with me, would that mean it was wrong? See, here's the thing I don't understand. Somebody has to be wrong simply because who it came from. I don't care who it came from. I care what's said. I say what I believe. You still there, Jeff?
Well, you're entitled to your opinion, but
exactly.
You're working toward getting Trump elected, so is that what your objective is? My
objective was not to get Trump elected. That's why I didn't want to nominate Hillary. How are you going to say, when before the convention, people like me said, do not nominate Hillary Clinton because she's the one person that could lose to Trump, and we don't want Trump to win. And now she's nominated, the numbers are neck and neck. I really don't think she's going to win, and which she still may win, but it doesn't need to be this close. So why is it that the people that tried to prevent a tragedy are the ones that are accused of being guilty of it?
Before the convention, I voted for Bernie, but then he endorsed Hillary. Okay, so you don't.
Well, nobody's perfect. Are you there, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, but look, I like Bernie.
So Bernie endorsed Hillary, so why don't you respect that?
I love Bernie, but I mean, hey, nobody's perfect. Look, Bernie can endorse anybody he wants to. I ain't much on thermonuclear war, my friend. I'm trying to avoid that.
I'm not either, but everything you say sounds like it was written in Moscow, man.
The question is not what it sounds like. The question is whether it's true or false. Are you arguing that it's false? I don't care where it sounds like it. I don't care if it sounds like it was written on Mars. In fact, let me say this: you're not attacking anything that I say. You're not rebutting it. You're not disputing it. You're simply saying it sounds like something, which is a great opinion. Is there any particular thing that I said that you want to rebut and say, well, that's completely false and wrong? Which are going to be hard because I was pretty much quoting verbatim what Hillary said, but you're free to say, well, Garland, it sounds like it was in Moscow, blah, 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 blah. But this particular thing that you said, why that was completely false. That's what I'm trying to hear, Jeff. Fill me in.
I got to tell you, when I hear you rebroadcasting RT, I get concerned because I know when I listen to RT that they are paid for by the Russian government, and that's okay. I listen to them. I understand their position. What I don't understand is that you're calling yourself independent, and yet you're rebroadcasting RT.
Let's go to the specifics. Anybody can make a broad accusation. I could say you sound like you're from the Russians. That doesn't tell me anything. Anybody can make a broad accusation. Let's go to the specifics. There's something apparently that I said that you disagree with, that you find objectionable. Specifically, what was it?
Yeah, you said that Hillary lies. That's a very broad statement. So exactly what lies are you talking about?
I specifically gave them. I specifically gave two statements by Hillary Clinton which contradicted each other completely.
Look, we have a legitimate policy argument in the United States about what our foreign policy is. But we don't need you to be respouting the Russian line and then asking listeners to pay for WPFW to broadcast that at 50,000 watts. And that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I appreciate you listening. Well, you know what? I'm going to say what I got to say, and that the whole that's the Russian stuff doesn't get anywhere with me. But thanks for listening anyway, Jeff. I appreciate a little bit of red baiting every now and then. We miss the 1950s. Where's McCarthy when we need him? But at any rate, 202-588-9739, 202-588-9739. Please, somebody call in, help keep us on the air. I think Jeff's on the way in to try to cut our trunk line or something, get us off the air. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Thank you, everybody. 202-588-9739, Garland Nixon, on every Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. Peace. I am out of here.
Thanks for listening to the Just Completed Public Affairs or News program. As a listener-sponsored community radio station, WPFW appreciates your feedback, whether favorable or otherwise. To provide your feedback, even if it is regarding one of our many music programs, simply email us at info@wpfw.org. That's info@wpfw.org. Thanks.
You're listening to WPFW, The Messenger.
Forgot anything?